and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by some of my favorite husky, hairy, huggable homos to talk about something near and dear to our hearts, that, of course, being film. We love movies on the show, so much the word is literally in our title. We also love bears, and we've got a couple of extra bears with us on this week's show. More on that here in just a moment. But we got a big program for you this week. We're going to be talking all things The Wizard of Oz. That's right. Here in the United States, it's almost Thanksgiving, which means I think TBS is airing 24 hours of The Wizard of Oz this weekend. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, you're going to have, 17 chances over the course of the weekend. But I think most people at this point have seen the film. We're going to have some great discussion. Feel free to join in the live chat, share your favorite moments from the film or your memories of watching that film. But before we get to that even, we've got a couple of special guests. I'll introduce them here in just a moment. Before I do, though, Will Lindis is with us in the virtual studio. Will, how are you?
Doing really well. I've tapped my heels together 3 times because, Brad, there's no place like home here on the Movie Bears podcast with you and Jim and our special guests.
Oh, Will, you're making me verklempt.
That's what I do.
I totally agree. And speaking of home, my loving, wonderful husband is here in our virtual studio too. However, he is helping us with some technical things on the back end, and he'll be coming in for our Wizard of Oz discussion here in just a few minutes. Jim says in the chat he's babysitting the cats while he handles some back end things for us. So, babe, thanks so much for helping out with that. We appreciate that. We'll see you here in just a little bit for our Wizard of Oz discussion. But we're also going to be discussing a short film called Wasted on the Young. We've got a couple of the driving forces behind the film. Joshua R Pangborn from Sidekick Productions, writer and director of the film, is here. Joshua, it's been a hot minute. How the hell are you doing?
I'm doing great. I mean, I've been I feel like I've been in a black and white world, and now all of a sudden things are getting a little more colorful. So
I would agree with that. There's hope in the world again. Well, so glad to have you with us to talk about the film. We'll jump into that here in a second. We've also got a familiar face with us on the Movie Bears podcast this week. Nakia, who composed the film's score, is here. And you may remember Nakia from several episodes in our show's varied history. Nakia, we're coming up on our 8-year anniversary, my friend, and you were there with us almost at the beginning. So it seems really fitting to have you back just a few weeks from that anniversary. Welcome.
Wow, I can't believe I've been doing it. Wow, that's a long time.
Right? We're all older and grayer and gayer.
I don't know about gayer. I don't know if I can get much gayer, but the rest counts.
Oh, goodness. Nakia, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day in Austin, and really glad to be back with y'all. You know, The Wizard of Oz was one of my favorite movies growing up that I used to watch with my mother every year on TBS back in the day, and then, of course, it became Turner Classic Movies, and it was such a tradition, and I love the movie so much, so I'm so excited to hear what you guys have to say about it.
Well, so glad that you could join us in addition to Joshua. We're going to dive into our discussion of Wasted on the Young. We've got a few questions for you guys. After watching the film, we movie bears are a curious bunch. There's things we want to know. I'm sure you have answers. And we'd also love at the end to hear about how our folks, our listeners, can follow you guys and follow the things that you're working on. So be prepared to share all the social media, all the links. But to get things started, so Wasted on the Young, short film, recently came out, became available. Joshua, could you tell us a little bit just about the short film's genesis and maybe your inspiration for the project? How'd it come about?
Sure. Well, if anyone knows me from my other project, Skeleton Crew and Demon Doctor, they know that I work a lot. I'm usually filming a lot, and pretty much every weekend is spent doing that. And with quarantine and COVID and all, I haven't been able to do that really. So I've been feeling very anxious and wanting to get some creative outlets out there. So I entered a film competition that gave us 2 weeks to make a film. And they gave us a random creature and a random genre, and we had to make a horror film with that creative limitations on it, and it had to be shorter than 8 minutes, and they gave us 2 weeks to do it, and that's sort of the genesis for why it happened. And then from there, I just wrote about 6 different ideas down, which probably will all become Demon Doctor episodes eventually, but so.
Well, that's fantastic. Really, really cool to hear that such a neat, short little film came about out of a contest. Very, very cool. It's been making the rounds. I've seen it posted online. Seems like it's gaining a lot of eyes on it, which is great. Lot of wonderful things in that short film. I don't want to give anything away, but I think your short film gets my award for best hairy chest and belly in a short film ever. So
it's pretty good. I can't say it's not a good one. So
that's I didn't even think about that. The cool thing is that the actual competition that we entered the film in, we ended up winning like 8 out of the 10 prizes in first place or second place, right?
We got 9 out of the 10 prizes in first place or second place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my god.
So,
that's amazing.
Including, best actor nods and best script and all of that stuff. So it was really, really a joy. Unfortunately, they didn't have a best music category, but they all loved the music. So
Wow.
They did. Actually, that was some of the feedback that this is really nice. I've never seen a film festival do this before. They sent us the judges' comments afterward, and it was pretty awesome that they did that, because you always want to know what they think of it. And one of the things they really highlighted was how great they love the original music. So because Nakia is amazing.
And that actually brings me to my question. First of all, I think that when you submit a film and you get awards, not just in one category, but in multiple categories, it means you're doing a lot of things right. And you mentioned the music being one of those things. Nakia, we mentioned this before. This isn't your first time on the show. You were back with us with an Oscars recap back in 2013, I believe. And then,
oh my gosh,
you're here. Yeah, I know, right? And then another time for I forget the name of the movie, but it was a music documentary from
Sound City.
Sound City.
Sound City. Yes. So we've talked to you in that capacity. We followed you as a recording artist, but here you're with us today in a very, very different capacity, scoring a film.
Yeah.
Very different than, like straight up just like being in the studio recording music for your solo act or your band act or anything like that. So you can tell us a little bit about the process of scoring the short and like what you learned from the experience, what you got out of the experience.
Sure. Anytime that I get to score stuff for Josh, I basically tell him to send me, the project, but also to give me kind of an idea of, what just some keywords or moods, emotions, colors even that he's working on and thinks about with the project. And then I just kind of take that and put it into the little, music box and just watch it and start coming up with ideas. For this one, I knew pretty early on that I wanted it to be very, very weird and synth heavy, and I wanted it to have this real uneasy feeling about it the whole time, because I felt like, number one, that was one of the things that the music could add to the story, but number two, the characters are so weird, like the woman, it's just so weird. I've never seen anything like that before, and it was so short, and I was like, I really wanted it to be something completely different than what I would normally do.
And from a very personal perspective, I love a synth-heavy score. So, bonus points in my book, because when I think horror and I think synth, there's like this perfect like marriage between the two. So thank you so much for bringing that marriage to this short.
Thanks, man. I'm really, really glad it worked out, and I would say I had plenty of practice with season 1 of Demon Doctor of coming up with this kind of, dark, moody, synth-heavy stuff, and it just really fits in here too. I wanted it to kind of feel like a 70s soundtrack,
I would definitely say mission accomplished there. We've got a few comments in the live chat I just want to catch up with real quick.
Yeah.
Our very own Magic Mike Lovins says, all these sexy men, I'm melting. What a world, Mike. What a world.
I love Mike. What a great bass player.
Oh, goodness. Daniel Jensen says, rumor is Jim is good at back-end things, by the way. I mean, sometimes the rumor mill is true. You got to listen. And a couple other folks. James says, good evening, Movie Bears and guests. Hey, James. Welcome.
James.
Glad to have you with us. Joshua, very curious. So, of course, we've been following Skeleton Crew and Demon Doctor here on the Movie Bears podcast. You and Nakia have had many opportunities to collaborate in the past around those. What can we maybe look forward to coming up from you next?
Well, we have a huge collaboration that Nakia and I are working on for season 5 of Skeleton Crew. We are doing a full-length original musical episode. And by full-length, I mean 14 original songs, an hour and 45 minutes long. It's going to be a full-on Skeleton Crew movie. And we've been working on that for a very long time, it seems. But that's our huge project, I think, that's coming out. And I'm really excited about that. Nakia did all the music for the original songs. I helped him with the lyrics, and I wrote a lot of the lyrics.
The majority of the lyrics.
And it's going to be an incredible experience. We're going to have a cast album come out for that. We're going to have Nakia's going to release an album, hopefully, as well, of him covering all the songs, and that will be some really exciting stuff on top of the rest of season 5 that he's going to score as well. And we have a new show under Psychic Productions coming out soon, December 3rd, that Nakia is going to help score. That's The Art of Blowing It, created by Ashley Monique Kennard. It's super funny. It's really fun to just act in something and not have to handle every single aspect of creation. And then hopefully next year we're going to have our first feature film that Nakia will be heavily involved in as well. So
I have to say, it is so impressive how many things that the two of you, and not just the two of you, but like the entire Sidekick Productions team and extended family, like how many different things that you have going on at any given time. Like it is mind-blowing to me sometimes, just the amount of output that you all have. And congratulations on that, Josh, being able to sort of spearhead all of that and sort of keep all of those plates spinning and everyone on deadline. In the midst of all of this, I saw something else come across my social media feed this week that I kind of wanted to call out. Nakia, can you tell me a little bit about Matthew McConaughey and Wild Turkey and Local Legends and any interesting calls you may have had lately?
So yesterday a video was released on the Wild Turkey social media and then on our Facebook stuff that Matthew McConaughey surprised me 2 weeks ago on a call. We spent about 30 minutes talking to each other about a bunch of different stuff from the state of Austin music and what's going on in the world, and of course Dazed and Confused and other things about Austin that we love. And he also, as a kind of a recognition for the work that I've been doing, the volunteer work I've been doing during the pandemic with musicians and music venues, he and Wild Turkey gave Robert, my husband Robert, and I a trip to Las Vegas, an all-expense paid trip to Las Vegas. So super, super cool. I'm a huge fan of McConaughey, huge fan of Dazed and Confused, and we get so much. And even in the video, you can see me slip in like. That was, by the way, that was one of 3 Dazed and Confused quotes I managed to slip into the Hey, You Need a Ride was one of them. Never Fear, There's a New Fiesta in the Making was one of them. And the little change from my pocket, Yeah.
Well, it's well-deserved, Nakia. We here in Austin, you're just down the road from me, but we here in Austin appreciate what you bring to the local music scene, supporting local musicians, all while also being able to venture into like the world of like film and online series, but being able to take care of your hometown musicians in the midst of all of that. Like that's, well-deserved. Very
well-deserved. Release my own music. I released 2 songs in the last month. One video that I did in 24 hours with stock footage, and now I'm doing a new lyric video that I can't wait to come out. It's actually a little short film in itself. I can't wait for y'all to see it. It's animated.
Well, we're
really cool what he did with that.
Definitely excited for that. Hey, we got some praise to heap on you, Joshua, Nakia, from our live chat. Daniel Jensen says, Nakia, multi-talented man, keep up the great work, and thank you, Joshua, for the body positivity vibes. We appreciate you. So co-signed. It's so great to see bears and big men, of which I am one, very positively portrayed in your productions, in your projects. Pariah Carey says, love Nakia and Joshua so much talent.
That is our dear friend Ben. He's the artist actually who illustrated my new lyric video. Yeah, I cannot wait for y'all to see it. And he has the best profile pic ever. Freddie Mercury as a mid-century, Victorian age. I love that. It's so nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
I know Jim isn't with us right now, but one thing that he usually would say when we watch any film or any type of television show where there are large people represented on screen, a lot of times it's negatively. A lot of times it's, we are, as people of size, like a lot of times the butt of the joke. So, Joshua, definitely want to co-sign what Daniel said there in chat. It's very nice that people that look like me are represented positively as, as loving beings, as horrific beings, as sexual beings, as whatever it is, it's the full gamut, as people, as opposed to, unfortunately, like a lot of shows were just the fat joke. So thank you for that.
Definitely.
I mean, that was a huge point of why I created Psychic Productions, really. I mean, I wanted to create stories about it's not even just body positive anymore. I think it's also just fat acceptance is the other thing. I think I see a lot of people moving away from body positive because it's that term is sort of being co-opted by the bodybuilders who are having a fat day in the gym and everything. Hashtag body positive. So I see a lot of people, larger men and women, using fat acceptance as the term that they're starting to.
I love that.
And I think it's a really important thing to get out there, and that's why I do Skeleton Crew and Demon Doctor, and Ashley. I worked with Ashley to create Art of Blowing Up because I think it's so important to just tell stories with people who are big or not big, and just have them be people as opposed to butts of jokes or bad and evil. And if they're evil, it should be evil because of who they are, not because of their body size. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or whether or not they're a man or a woman. I love that about Josh. It's not just body positive, but there's no kink shaming. None of those things are happening. All of these things are just accepted as normal, So, but thank you so much for having us on and letting us
absolutely, yes,
this with you.
Absolutely, Ben, our pleasure. And before we let you go, you've mentioned a lot of different projects, a lot of irons that you have in the fire. We want to make sure that our listeners are able to find those projects and are able to connect with you folks. So if you wouldn't mind, Josh, let's start with you. Where can folks connect with Sidekick Productions and all the great things you have going on?
Sure. Well, you can always follow me on Instagram at Sidekick Productions, like you see in the bar below my face. But you can also see any of our work on YouTube. It's youtube.com/sidekickprod, or you can go to skeletoncrewtheseries.com. That'll bring you to all of the Skeleton Crew episodes we have released so far. DemonDoctor.com will bring you to all of the Demon Doctor episodes we've released. Check us out on there because you'll also be able to find The Art of Blowing It coming up on December 3rd. You can also watch Wasted on the Young, which we talked about tonight. That's on our YouTube channel as well. And then you can just follow us on Facebook, Sidekick Productions, Skeleton Crew the Series, Demon Doctor the Series, and you'll find us there ready to talk about that acceptance and more.
All right. Awesome. Well, I don't know if you folks have heard out there in listener land, but there's a pandemic on. There's lots of stuff to watch thanks to Sidekick Productions. So be sure to check those things out. And Joshua, we'll be putting all of those in our show notes as well so that people can find those. So if you're listening live right now and you're like, shit, I missed the links, I missed what to do, no worries. We will get that for you in the show notes. We'll have that available.
Awesome.
Nakia, you have a ton of stuff going on too, my friend. I love it. Where can people connect and follow what's going on with you?
Pretty much at Nakia anywhere. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr. It doesn't matter. Rest in peace, Google Plus. but YouTube is just Nakia as well. Also on Facebook, every Monday night I host Sidekick Power Hour with Josh, and you guys should come on sometime to promote what y'all are up to. Let us know what's going on over there. And what we're doing right now is rewatching every episode of Skeleton Crew from season 1 all the way leading up to the season 5 premiere in 2021.
Oh, that's super exciting. Would be really fun to collaborate on that for sure. Definitely. And Nakia, we'll make sure to put your links and such in the show notes as well. Joshua, Nakia, just want to say thank you again for joining us. So many congratulations on Wasted on the Young and those fabulous awards that you won. Listeners, be sure to check out those links in our show notes when they come out and take a peek. There's a lot of good stuff there.
Thanks
so much for having us.
Thank you so much, guys. This was a blast.
Our pleasure, fellas. We'll catch up with you again very soon. Take care. Bye. All right. See what
Here
I did
I am.
Welcome to Jim, who is back from babysitting the cats and doing some back-end work for us during that interview.
I'm back.
Sweetheart, I know you had a chance to listen as we were talking to Nakia and Joshua.
Yeah.
What did you think of seeing those two guys?
Oh, I loved seeing those two guys. Nakia being a close friend, and Joshua. I'm just amazed at the amount of artistic and creative output that both of these guys together have put out, both collaboratively and separately. Like I'm in awe of the ambition, I guess. Kind of the creative ambition that those guys have, because I really don't have that. I don't know whether it's COVID or what it is, but it awes me. And God, I can't even keep up with watching and listening to everything that those guys are doing. Never mind like having to create all that stuff. But it's astounding. It's great to see them again. Maybe, who knows? Maybe on our 8th anniversary show or something, we might hear from one or both of those guys. We'll have to see.
That's such a good point, Jim. I mean, I think that it's sometimes hard to convert from idea to put it into action and make the thing and release the thing and get it out in the world. And I think that being able to do so during this time specifically of pandemic, when it is hard to connect in person, it's hard to get the crew together. It's hard to do all of these things that we normally do. The fact that they're able to be so prolific, I think, just speaks volumes. And very, very personal level. Like it's so good to see Nakia on here and being able to chat with him. It's been a hard pandemic, and he's been one of like the people that sort of helped keep me sane. He's part of our pod, everyone has local pods, so it's nice to just every time I see him and see Rob, it's just sort of like helps me feel like, okay, I'm connected to the world. I'm connected to something aside from this house, this locked in space. So thank you.
Absolutely. We got a chance to see Rob before we went live. Always good to see that handsome fella. So bummed that we didn't get to do South by Southwest Film this year. That's normally, where we see you and Scott and the Pub Swill, and we get to see Nakia and Rob and catch up with all of our Austin crew. Hopefully, once there's a vaccine and things are safe, we can get back and resume those things. But great to have Nakia on the show. Also great to have Joshua here. We've been following, like I mentioned earlier, Demon Doctor, and of course, some of the other projects that he's been involved in for a while. He's such a delightful person, and really, really glad he was able to join us too.
Absolutely.
Well, just sort of basking. Yeah.
I know, right? Well, speaking of people joining us, we've got some other folks in the live chat. Jordan Riley says, I am glad you guys are on tonight. needed something to cheer me up after a long week last week. Jordan, we love you very much. I know there's so much going on right now for you, but just know you're in our hearts. We adore you so much, and we're glad you are here, my friend. Absolutely. Always here for you. And Justin Klingerman, new listener to the show, says, I remember growing up just noticing how apparently we were all represented for eating Twinkies, farting, in reference to the fat acceptance thing in movies and TV shows. It's funny that you mentioned that, Justin. I'm a closeted Power Rangers fan, and I was recently rewatching the Evil Green Ranger arc from the show's first season, and there's a large character named Bulk on that show, and he's just a never-ending stream of farts, burps, and like fat belly jokes. So that's very much on my mind, Justin, as well. So glad to see that we're just a punchline as big guys.
One thing that'll make you feel better about that, Brad, if you haven't yet, that actor is Paul Schreier, and he's got a really great Twitter feed.
Yeah, he's also turned into quite the handsome daddy.
Your lips got ears.
So is the Red Ranger, just saying. Anyway, we've got a lot more to talk about on this week's episode of the Movie Bears podcast. Episode 387, by the way, I think.
Wow.
The triangle. Yeah.
Wait. No one said there'd be math on this episode.
Look, I reserve the right to use equations anytime I
Great. Today on the Movie Bears
it.
podcast, we're reviewing Common Core. Let's get down to it now. No, we're not. Don't send us hate tweets.
Get ready for our discussion of the Pythagorean theorem. Anyway, all right. Well, it's Wizard of Oz time. This movie came out in 1939. Pretty much everybody on the face of the planet has probably seen it if they want to see it. We're going to kick that discussion off here in just a few moments after we leave some silence to insert music or something, or a trailer. Did it even have a trailer? I don't even know. Jim, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do for the movie bumper this week. But
I'll figure something out.
Maybe a snippet of a song or something. Just don't get us in trouble with the motion picture copyright, whatever.
That could be a whole nother discussion that we won't get into right now.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Right.
Considering where we are, 380 some odd episodes, and I think we only had one strike or something like that on us or something like that. So,
and it wasn't even our fault. We put a movie trailer in.
I know, it was ridiculous. Compared to what I see on YouTube, I don't think we have a lot to worry about. There's bigger fish out there.
It's so fun. They're like, we're taking down your episode. Okay, YouTube. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah,
whatever.
Unfortunately, the automated strike system is not great for dealing with fair use, which is fair use and review. But honestly, we do a good job, and we always mind our P's and our Q's, so we'll continue to do so.
We do our best. But that said, we're going to be talking spoilers galore on The Wizard of Oz because this movie has been out for 80 years. Oh my gosh, 81 years. Wow. That blows my mind. Yeah. But get ready. Put on your ruby red slippers. Jump on to the yellow brick road, which is behind me. You can't see it. My chair's in the way. Yeah. We're headed to Emerald City. And here we go. Our discussion of The Wizard of Oz. Because.
Follow the yellow brick road.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, as I mentioned before the jump, this movie came out in 1939. This film is usually aired in the United States around Thanksgiving time, the Sunday before. Yeah. If you haven't watched The Wizard of Oz in a while, TBS has got like a 24-hour marathon coming up on Sunday relative to this recording. So several, days from now, 6 days from now. Get your Wizard of Oz fix on Sunday, but also get it now. We're going to be talking about this film completely chock full of spoilers, sharing our favorite moments from the film, some of our memories about watching this film, maybe with families and friends. We have a lot of folks with us in the live chat. Hello and welcome to all of you. Some folks jumped in during our interview. Please let us know your favorite moments, your favorite memories with The Wizard of Oz. We'd love to share some of those on air. But gentlemen, the discussion floor is officially open. Did you rewatch The Wizard of Oz recently, or has it been a while, Will?
Yeah, so I rewatched it today, actually. And so I have this thing, this tradition, this ritual I do for this podcast. No matter how many damn times I've seen the movie, I watch it because my brain can sometimes be a little bit like honestly, like a net, and not like a net to capture things, but with like big ass holes that things
like a sieve
slip through. Like a sieve. That's way better. Yeah. So I rewatched it today because I've seen this countless times, but even watching it today, I found that there were things that I sort of had pushed out of my memory. And I think a big reason for that is because you're not only dealing with like the movie that you saw and your memory of the movie, but you're also dealing with your memory of all of the pop culture interpretations of the movie and how those get sort of like bastardized and sanded down and turned into a thing, and your memory of the film gets replaced with that. For example, rewatching it today, I forgot just how long the black and white section was at the beginning. I remembered that it was there. I remembered like all of the beats, but watching it today, there was a part of me that felt like the scene where she's interacting with Hunk and Zeke and Hickory, the three people who would later show up as Scarecrow, Cowardly Lion, and Tin Man. I had kind of pushed that out of my memory. And watching it, I remembered it, but it's just like, oh yeah, these guys are in this. So it was really nice rewatching it. And I think that's something I'm going to probably use as a takeaway for a lot of films that have become part of the public domain and, which have been like spoofed on Family Guy and The Simpsons and everything so many times. Rewatching them and watching them as they are and not just as the pop culture references from time to time, just to sort of get that booster shot. But other than that, it holds up. It holds up really well. It's beautiful. The colors are so beautiful. The songs are so fun. The dialogue and the jokes are quippy for something that's 81 years old. I've watched movies from the 30s and from the 40s, and some of them hold up, but some of them very, very much have aged and feel their age. But Wizard of Oz feels timeless, and I feel like I could watch this again 20 years from now, and it'll still feel just as timeless.
But could you watch it on a loop for 24 hours?
I could not. And nothing against the movie, but that sounds like hell. I can't do it with the Christmas Story around December, and I can't do it with the Wizard of Oz around November.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, Will, you mentioned the colors. So many great poppy colors.
Poppy. Get it?
Speaking of which, Jim, you and I, when we watched it last night, we got to watch the 4K restoration, and a lot popped. Babe, maybe seeing this film a while back before Blu-ray and 4K was a thing.
Oh yeah.
What was it like seeing this film so crisp, clear, and colorful compared to the original?
It's been great because, luckily there's one thing we're talking about on the show that's older than me. So that's one good thing about this, thing. So like, it's hard to believe this movie's 80 years old, to your points, Will. I mean, and also to echo your point, there's still some things that come across in this movie after the umpteenth time I've watched this that are like, oh my God, I either forgot or didn't even know that was in this movie. Like, oh, did that really happen? Was that in the original? Did they drop something new in there? And that's the wonder of this movie. And I think part of what keeps it from being, keeps it a timeless classic, right? And not getting mired and feeling dated is the fact that it deals with a fantasy world, right? So that fantasy world, it doesn't mire itself too much in reality, except for the beginning portion of it, right? Up until the Professor Marvel, that's his name, right? Professor Marvel. at the beginning. Up until that stuff starts to happen. But yeah, oh man, I can remember watching this every year around this time and like asking my mom, like, hey, when's the Wizard of Oz coming on? Right. I don't want to miss it. Because back then, I mean, I was alive before like VCR. I was a kid before VCRs were a thing. So like you didn't just like, record it one year and then you could watch it, 100 times. You had to wait for it to come on. You had to actually read the TV guide, something called a TV guide that actually showed you like on each channel what was on in each time slot, and then plan your day or your evening around that. If you missed it, you missed it. You might be out for another year. You're not going to see it for another year. So I can also remember being totally terrified in parts of this movie. The Twister scene at the beginning always terrified me. I don't know why, just something sinister about the way that thing like moved in the distance. And it kind of was, you got the sense that it was bearing down on Dorothy, right? And the farm, and like that impending tension and sense of doom and dread that was coming. Of course, Mrs. Gulch just always freaked me out. And then, the witch, of course, and the flying monkeys and all that stuff in the main part of the movie. But that stuff like legit would make me like cover my eyes when I was a really young boy. I don't know if it would work the same way on kids today. That would be interesting to hear. I don't know if Mary's on the chat, but I know she has young children, and people with young children, if they've seen this, please comment. But this movie doesn't really get old for me. Like I said, there's always something new to see. And we'll talk about some of the other stuff. I know we've seen some comments in here about some of the theories, right, about the movie and the background stuff. We'll get into that. But I still adore this movie, Brad. The 4K. It's like every time I've come from watching it originally on a regular tube TV on broadcast television, right? Crappy. I can't even remember the first few times I've watched it. May not have even been in color. I don't think I've ever. I think we went, Brad. I think the time we went to the movie theater to see this one time, we actually saw a special screening of it on a 75th anniversary or something like that. But the evolution of the presentation of this movie from that to CD to DVD and now to 4K restoration has been just it's almost like an out of focus picture just becoming, super sharp, right? And I don't think they've overdone it. I just think it's perfect the way it is. Yeah, that's my impression. I know I've babbled on way too long, but I'm gonna let you go. Fine. Yeah, I definitely adore this movie. Everything about it. But once a year is fine. I'm not watching it all the time. Once a year is fine. But any movie that's 80 years old and you've seen it probably over 20, 30, 40 times, and you still see something to take away from it, I think that says all there is to say about the film.
Yeah. Definitely agree. Hey, Bill Zanowitz from the Comic Book Bears podcast says, hey, fellas.
Hey, Bill.
Good to see you, friend. Welcome. Glad to have you on the show this week. Jim, to your point, I know Will has disappeared to the land of Oz for the moment. Hopefully he'll be back here shortly.
I think a twister took him away.
I think so. But to your comment, yeah, it's interesting. The last few times I've seen this film has been a progression, right? Like I think 3 times ago I watched it on TV. 2 times ago we watched it in a movie theater. I guess it's 4 times. Then we got the cleaned up Blu-ray, and now we've watched it in 4K. So I think I've watched it 4 times in the last, 11 years we've been together. Mm-hmm. And every time we see it, it looks better and better and better. What was really interesting to me was to see a lot of the plants and stuff in Munchkin Land, especially in the 4K restoration. You can see the shine on the plastic flowers. They couldn't really see as much before. You know, like you knew they were fake. Obviously, they weren't real flowers, but it's like, oh, those are very clearly made out of molded plastic. But like, it didn't take away any of the magic for me. The colors are just so much more vibrant than I'm used to seeing them, especially the scene behind me. If you're watching the video part of the podcast, Emerald City just looks so gloriously verdant and gleaming in the 4K restoration that I'm just like, oh man, I want to go there so bad. I'd ask a tornado to take me away, but that almost happened one time and it was scary. So I'm not going to ask for that. But it would be cool to visit the Emerald City if it were a real place, a real thing. There were some comments in the live chat about some of the darker things that have been rumored. There's some very famous myths about this film. One of them, George brought up earlier. How do you guys feel about some of the dark stuff, like the man hanging from a tree? And I was actually doing a little bit of research about this earlier. Also, hey, howdy, George. Glad to see you. Welcome. And it turns out that the studio's official position is that it wasn't one of the actors who played a Munchkin hanging himself. They had brought in some animals to make the forest look alive, and I guess they had a heron crane or something in the background, and a shadow was like being cast on the painting that's in the background, like behind the trees and stuff that they had set up. And the bird was like moving and it looked like it was swaying. It's super weird. Snopes, very, very famous for debunking myths and bringing some truth, has done their own investigation into this. And turns out it wasn't a dead person hanging from a tree. But I tell you what, back in the 90s when this thing was on VHS, my friends and I all thought that's what it was. So every time we get to that scene, it was like, oh my God, there's a dead person hanging from a tree back there. And it really was like a mind fuck. Like I wanted to not watch the movie because it was like really disturbing to see like happy-go-lucky lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, dead person. So I'm really glad to hear that was not a real thing.
Yeah, and so absolutely, Brad. Like that is one of those like urban legends, same as the 3 Men and a Baby and some of those things that have propagated. There are enough actual negative things that happened on set here that that are worth like at least acknowledging. Like the lion's fur was made of actual lion fur, which is great for a lot of reasons.
Not great for some lions.
Yeah, exactly. The first actor that was playing the Tin Man, which is Buddy Ebsen, they put aluminum dust all over him and they put him in the hospital, and they had to recast him. The snow in the poppy scene was asbestos, and that's where you get Margaret Hamilton.
Wait, hold on. The poppies wasn't actually cocaine?
Oh, it could have been. It could have been. You know what? We're starting that one right here, right now. The witch and her stunt double both suffered serious burns from one of the pyro things. And of course, there's also young Judy Garland had a lot of pretty negative experiences on set between being underpaid. There was some sexual assault stuff that happened, being kind of like fed a bunch of like kind of like pep pills to sort of keep going. There's a lot of things that, the 30s was a long time ago. It was at it was early into the sort of like young Hollywood. Not to say that those things don't happen nowadays. I think there are still definitely some issues that happen nowadays, but it was much more Wild West in a lot of ways then. And it's okay to recognize and acknowledge those things while also recognizing that it is a film from another time and still being able to enjoy it for what it is, while also still recognizing that some bad shit happened. And that's kind of where I fall. Like, I can't undo kind of the bad in the movie, and that's still something that brings a lot of people joy nowadays. So I wouldn't want to detract from that. So that's where I fall, I guess.
And a lot of the other stuff that people have kind of these legends or myths or whatever that have kind of evolved around this movie. I find them interesting to listen to and maybe try to watch for something in the movie. It's kind of like another dimension to watch the movie through, but I never really. I'm a skeptic. I'm a total skeptic. So you'd have to really, really convince me that some of those things are true. I mean, you could make conspiracies and myths around anything. I mean, even the scene behind Brad there, right? You got the Emerald City with its big spires that are penises, and the poppies represent women's vagina. You know what I mean? Like, so you could make some kind of weird myth kind of around anything other than just, a giant green building and a bunch of flowers. So I don't put much credibility behind them, but they are interesting to kind of listen to and deconstruct a little bit.
And I will say the things that I mentioned those ones aren't kind of in the myth section. Those are things that happened. Those are things that came from set and stuff like that.
Oh,
no. Yeah. I just want to make sure because I didn't want to, and I know you weren't doing that, but at the same time, I wanted to make sure that.
No.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had to turn off my poppy background because I didn't want to be surrounded by vaginas. Thanks for that visual, Jim.
Sorry if you're,
not that there's anything wrong with vaginas. It's just
nothing.
No. Let's replace it
Will,
with
you're
that
absolutely right.
Tunnel that's behind you now.
My comment was only it kind of started out about George's comment, but you're absolutely right. Behind this movie production being done 80 years ago and a lot of other movie productions, there are real life kind of unfortunate circumstances, at least, that could be brought out.
It's interesting. One of the things that I love about this film is the Munchkins. Like, they just delight me to no end. The Lullaby League, the Lollipop Guild. As coroner, I must aver. But we watched a documentary a few years ago, just before the last of the little people passed away, and there were some wild and crazy stories about some of the, frolicking and sexual activity coming out of like the hotel where all of these folks were staying. And Jim, it was so funny. We were talking about that a little bit last night. And I remember thinking when I saw the documentary, like, wow, that sounds totally crazy. Like all these folks, doing that. But then Jim's like, well, how is that any different from like Chubfest or, Austin Chill or, P-Town, Bear Week? Like you bring a bunch of like-minded, like-bodied people together, like they're gonna have fun. Like they're gonna have, some cavorting. Nothing wrong with that. When the police are called, that might get a little weird, but otherwise it's fine.
But think of it like I know there are probably different kinds of social meetups and social opportunities for people of all different, groupings, right? Mm-hmm. But think about 80 years ago, these people who, were born with dwarfism or, had, were of this type. What other like outlets do you think they might have had to socialize, right? And all together in such a large group as the Wizard of Oz. That had to be kind of a momentous meetup for a lot of the cast in this film, I would think.
So here's a question for you. If we lived in Munchkinland, as it's called, would we be the Movie Bears Guild? Wait, I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. Would we represent the Movie Bears Guild? The Movie Bears Guild?
The Movie Bears Guild. Maybe. Do they have movie theaters in Oz? I sure as hell hope so.
They do. They're just on the other side of the poppies. You just kind of lay down, look up at the sky, and the clouds turn into whatever story you want them to.
Oh, actually, I just looked it up. The Red Brick Road, which runs the other direction than the Yellow Brick Road, leads to a Cinemark. So,
that makes total sense. Dorothy's missing out, especially. She had her Cinemark rewards card. She could have just gone that way.
She joined the Cinemark Movie Club to get her 20% discount on popcorn and Raisinets.
What she's doing is she's avoiding the movie theaters because it's a global pandemic in Oz. Although her social distancing was not great.
Well, the Scarecrow is made of hay. the Tin Man is made of metal, and the lion is an animal, and Toto is an animal. So technically speaking, at least when she was out of Munchkin Land, I think everybody was safe.
Yeah.
Do we know if
right?
tin is a good vector for the virus? I don't know.
I'm taking my Clorox wipes anyway.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. Oil cans. Like, yeah, I'm gonna spray you and I'm gonna spray and wipe you down first.
Yeah,
spray you with
Lysol.
hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizer. No, I mean, like,
Well,
what? Go ahead, Brad.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking about the Tin Man last night. I'm like, all right, so scarecrows are a thing. People put them in fields to, keep predatory birds or whatever away. Lions are obviously real. Where the fuck did Tin Men come from? Like, who builds a Tin Man? Like, I guess this is a world where Tin Men are like robots are like animated. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, where does a Tin Man appear?
Ask L. Frank Baum, man. I mean, he's the only one that can answer that, and he's dead. So
right. I wonder if it's in another book, or there's somebody who knows like what the genesis of Tin Men are, or in Oz. Like, is there a whole society of Tin Men? Like,
so not to get too deep into this, but there's a sequel to this film that introduces all the Clockwork people, metal people. Well, I love The Wiz. Oh my gosh, I love The Wiz so much, but not The Wiz. Return to Oz, or whatever the fuck it was called, Wizard of Oz 2, introduces the Clockwork people, and they're all made of metal. So I don't know if the Tin Man is like an offshoot of them. I don't necessarily.
Was that really bad James Franco thing? Is that what it was?
No.
Well, there's that movie, but
no,
I think that was Return to Oz.
Return to Oz is also Nightmare Fuel.
Yeah.
It's got some pretty dark imagery in a lot of ways. Not like dark imagery, but like it's that kind of bizarre fantasy stuff that, like, when you're young, it looks more terrifying than it is. But yeah, no, I mean, the Wizard of Oz wasn't the only book that, L. Frank Baum wrote. He wrote one called The Tin Woodman of Oz, where it talks about his backstory and kind of everything that happened. And, I guess he had to, like, his axe got enchanted and he had to chop off his different body parts limb by limb. And then it gets replaced by a tinsmith. And then all of this, there's a whole backstory. There's an origin story. Before, Star Wars started prequeling everything, the Wizard of Oz was saying, like, let's get backstories and origin stories for every single character. That's where it came from. I'm making that last shit up. I don't know if that's not where it came from. But no, but the book actually, like, there is actually a book about, him chopping off his limbs and them getting replaced with tin.
I think I prefer the Tin Man origin story from Wicked. I'm just saying.
I do too. I've been listening to Wicked all week.
Oh my God, me too.
Remind me what that is.
Broadway musical that is set as
I know what Wicked is, but what's the origin of the Tin Man in Wicked?
Oh, okay. So you have this character named, without going too far into it, this character named Bach, who is in love with one character, but is sort of like stuck with another character, grows to resent it. Stuff happens. He becomes tin. I took like the entire beginning of Act 2 and just sort of turned it into 2 sentences.
Right. It's basically a magic spell out of the magic book that Elphaba has. That ends up turning Bach into a man made of tin. Yeah. So a wizard did it, or a witch in this case.
Magic.
It's so funny though. Like, so watching this movie last night, the Wicked Witch gets water thrown on her. I'm melting. What a world. Right afterward, I pulled up a clip from Broadway.com that had Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel singing For Good. And I'm like, Jim, no, we have to watch this. This is what happened actually before she got melted. Yeah. And like, I mean, we've seen Wicked, 4 times now? But like, I've never watched parts of Wicked, like right after watching The Wizard of Oz, or like together, And so like, it really like reinformed that whole scene for me. Like my brain was like filling in that into the parts of the movie. Like, when they're on the yellow brick road, they're moving around. I'm envisioning like Galinda with a G and Elphaba just like doing their thing and like talking in the background while this stupid girl and her dog are running around. And I kind of love that Broadway gave me that parallel story.
That's interesting, Brad. I kind of like to keep the two properties kind of separate, and I know they are supposed to be interconnected, but I think I enjoy each one as its own separate entity. And I don't want a lot of Wicked to influence my ideas on the Wizard of Oz. I guess it's harder to not have the Wizard of Oz influence my ideas of Wicked.
Wait.
Yeah.
You don't want to mix them, but this is coming from the man who mixes 4 fucking breakfast cereals.
That's right. I will mix breakfast cereals, but I want to keep my properties kind of straight. And, not straight, but I want to keep them identifiable as their own thing.
I think that there's something where both of them serves as like a point counterpoint to the other. Like, you can have the Wizard of Oz without Wicked, but you can't really have Wicked without the Wizard of Oz, because even the references within Wicked are all like every single song that Elphaba sings is basically like pun play on word things about like, I could be so happy I could melt. Wink, wink. It's designed to sort of counterpoint those things. But it is interesting how much of Wicked I've pushed over into my Wizard of Oz viewing, because there's a long time there where, I kind of came at the tail end of kind of theater kid in terms of like, when I discovered Wicked, which is like the perfect time to discover it. You kind of grow to resent Dorothy. You kind of like, fuck her, like it's not her. It's not Elphaba's fault. But I don't know. It's I've appreciated being able to see this sort of like alternate story. We see this a lot of times in media, and I don't think we see it quite as effectively done. If you think about like Maleficent is what we had with Maleficent's treatment in Maleficent versus Cinderella Sleeping Beauty is very similar to what we have with Wicked versus Wizard of Oz. But I don't think it was done as effectively. I think we seeing the story behind the story like we saw in Lion King 1.5, which sort of retold the Lion King 1 and 2, but from Timon and Pumbaa is not as effective. I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know that there's ever been quite as effective a sort of an alternate history view of a beloved piece as Wicked does for Wizard of Oz.
I would definitely agree, and I feel like we could spend a whole show talking about Wicked, and maybe at some point we should as a follow-up. We should. But I agree. We lost Jim. For anyone watching live, you may have noticed his picture disappeared, and I have a theory as to what happened. So we have a new kitten in the house, Merlin. He's adorable, but he is a rambunctious little pricklebush, and all of Jim's computer stuff is plugged into one power strip on the floor with one of those buttons, and Merlin has been walking on the power strip and turning off his computers in the middle of work meetings. So I'm 99% sure that's probably what just happened.
Well, while he's getting back, one of the things that I found so exciting to watch in The Wizard of Oz and during my rewatch was something that I took for granted as a kid, and that's the physicality of the performances. As a kid, you watch something like The Wizard of Oz, and it's almost like a cartoon in some ways. In that, it's bright, it's colorful, it's characters you can relate to. They're kind of fantasy characters. So when people do pratfalls or kind of odd dances and odd movements, you sort of take for granted just how demanding that is of the actors. And rewatching that, today, really paying attention to all of the Scarecrow's movements, and not just like when he's dancing, but even when he starts to walk, he does this thing where he sort of like wills his body into moving and sort of flumps into motion. Seeing the Cowardly Lion, just the way that everything just sort of sags down as he's moving, all of his eye twitches and stuff as he's talking. The Tin Man's just, it's like robotic style movement, but it's all purposeful and it all works. And there's a couple of times, there's one where Tin Man actually takes like a kind of a big fall at one point, and I saw like a piece of like the little metaling on the side like crumple a little bit, like not the clothy parts, but the metal, like the whatever, like aluminum tin, whatever they use, crumpled a bit. It's like that was a hard fall that he took.
Oh yeah.
I was so impressed with that. It really makes those characters come to life in a way that, like, Judy Garland's great. We love her. We stan Judy Garland. But at the same time, like, when I come back and watch this, I think it's really those three characters she meets along the way that I find myself. That's like that's the heart, brain, and courage of this movie.
Oh, totally. I mean, for me, Dorothy is easily the least interesting part of this film. I think Dorothy is basically the audience, right? She's our vehicle into this amazing world. That doesn't mean that, you know, Judy Garland did a poor job as Dorothy. I thought she was fantastic.
No, yeah.
The character herself, you know. But Will, it's interesting that you mentioned the physicality of the roles. Not that this is even remotely on the same level, but I was in a high school production of The Wizard of Oz. And a good friend of mine, Kyle, actually played the Scarecrow. And so, not that we wanted to totally copy the movie, but like he wanted to sort of get some of those mannerisms down. He was practicing falling, and he sprained his arm and broke his elbow playing the Scarecrow when we did our last performance of this play, because there's just so much like falling on the ground and like weird angles with your arms, and you know he gave it his all. He got through the performance, and kudos to him. But I can only imagine, right, like the actor who played the Scarecrow, how many hours he probably practiced just moving, right, and just falling. It's kind of amazing that he's able to do that. Even the lion has very, very subtle, like physicality moments to him, right? If you ever just watch him, like how much he hugs his own tail and like kind of looks around behind him, like when his tail is not in his hands, it's like he's looking for his security blanket, you know. Pretty awesome little touches.
Put him up. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And these actors came from vaudeville. I mean, that's not the only thing that they did. A lot of them did, you know, Broadway and stuff like that. But a lot of them came off of the kind of the vaudeville circuit, and you can see that. And in some ways, it makes you sort of think that style of performance. I don't want to say it's like a lost art or anything like that. There are still things that replicate it. Very closely between, you know, like, you know, stage shows, you know, a lot of like even things like dinner theater, things like that. There's a lot of things that you can do to sort of recreate that. But vaudeville definitely had its own style, had its own personality, and seeing that translate into these performances is so unique that, Brad, I know we had talked about this a little off air and a little through our social media feed about like if you were to recast characters into you know, like if you made a movie today, if you were recast it. And I think the very first thing I thought of was like, I think that it would be really hard to ever recapture that same energy, because you just don't have people with that exact same background of that same sort of like acting caliber, or by acting caliber, I mean like, you know, no recognizable names that you could necessarily translate in there.
Well, I kind of love that you brought that up. And hey, sweetheart, welcome back.
Oh boy. That's a catastrophe over here.
I knew it. I called it. Ask Will. I was like, I know exactly what happened.
Yeah, we saw the tornado come through, and then we just saw your camera feed just go whipping up. We saw Arlo fly by in the background on a broom. It was intense.
You were there. You were there too.
And you were there, Jim, and you were there, and oh my!
But Will, it's fun that you brought up the question I had asked, and we actually put it on Facebook today around if a Wizard of Oz remake happened, and let's hope it never does, because it doesn't need to be remade. But if it did, who would you cast in the iconic roles? And we got some really interesting answers, and we'll just go through a couple of those. Bill Z from Comic Book Bears podcast said Jack Black for the Cowardly Lion. Jim, what would you think of that? Yeah, you'd be on board.
I think Jack Black would make a great Cowardly Lion. Yeah.
Well, how about for you?
Here's the idea I don't like. I don't like the idea of remaking this film.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is theory craft.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thought experiment that should never happen. It'll happen anyways because, you know, sometimes we live in a hellscape where these things happen. But I mean, we're just doing this for fun. I did my own kind of cast on paper of like the notable people, and Jack Black was the only person that I had in spot for the Cowardly Lion as well. I think it's such a good pick.
Oh yeah, I agree. Tony Gilkinson says for the Scarecrow, he would choose Channing Tatum. What do you guys think of that choice?
I think that would be a good choice too. Yeah.
Did
you mention mine?
Huh?
Oh, no, I think he'd be a great choice. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to see Channing Tatum pull off some excellent singing and dancing in Hail Caesar a few years ago.
Yeah.
That's
right.
the sailor scene in the bar. So that could be an interesting choice. Jim, what did you mean by did you mention mine?
What has Channing Tatum done like lately? Has he kind of dropped off the planet? I don't think we've heard much from him lately.
He was in I guess like recently. I mean, after the Magic
was
Mike,
that?
and then
The
Jump
Daniel
Street.
Craig. Daniel Craig.
That was like 5
movie.
years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Didn't we see a movie like a year or two ago with Daniel Craig, and it was like Money something? It was really dumb comedy. What was that? Dumb for Me. Let me clarify.
Yeah.
It's like a heist movie. Like, aren't they trying to steal money during a race or something?
Logan Lucky.
Yes.
He was in Logan Lucky in 2017. He did some voice acting like a couple of years ago, like Lego Movie 2. But that was like he was just like Superman in that. It's not like he had like a ton.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like I've just pulled up his stuff, and it looks like a minor voice role in 2019,
Yeah.
and then he's got some stuff coming up. But it looks like he's sort of
Maybe.
So Jordan Riley in the chat says, how about Robert Downey Jr. for Tin Man? I don't know if he would downgrade himself from playing an Iron Man to a Tin Man.
I like it, Jordan. I like your thinking, though.
I like the thinking there. I was thinking someone like Luke Evans would be kind of a good pick there.
The other Evans.
I was
Luke
thinking
Evans.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say, like, Luke Evans is known to be like, he's a good singer. I could see someone like Chris Pine, or I could see someone like, I'd just do something very different. Daveed Diggs would be fun.
Oh, that would be cool. Definitely. Chris Evans came to mind last night while we were watching it, because I think he actually looks similar to the actor who played the Tin Man originally. But I don't know if Chris Evans can sing.
I know you'll hate my pick for Scarecrow, but I mean, because of the dancing, and I think Lin-Manuel Miranda would be probably who they would pick, and I would see it. I'd like it. And here's for Dorothy. Give me Ali Cravalho.
I'd be on board with that. Totally. Completely.
Voice of Moana.
You see the line where the sky meets the yellow brick road? It calls me.
Yeah.
It calls me.
I was thinking JL for the Scarecrow could do that too. Joseph Gordon-Levitt could do this.
Oh, he'd be a phenomenal Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Totally. Guys, Janelle Monáe as Glenda. What do you think?
I love it.
Or the Wicked Witch.
She'd be great in either role, but I would love to see her gussied up in a pink sequined, beautiful, gauzy thing. I think it'd be glorious.
Give me Janelle Monáe as Glinda, and give me Renee Elise Goldsberry. She played Angelica in Hamilton. Give me her for Wicked Witch.
I like that a lot.
I'm trying to not just say, like, give me Idina Menzel, Kristen Chenoweth, and Joel Grey.
Right. I mean, they're the obvious
what
choices,
yeah.
Right? Right. Okay. Who would play the wizard himself?
Well, all 4 or 5 roles that guy played. Yeah. Marvel,
So-
the doorman, the guard.
What I would do for the wizard is, I know I'm sort of just shooting what I just said in the foot, but I think Joel Grey is such an amazing actor who did the role in Wicked. Instead of casting Idina and Kristen Chenoweth, as much as I want to, give me Joel Grey as sort of like the legacy pick.
I was thinking maybe Hugh Jackman for the wizard? Coming out of The Greatest Showman.
Jordan Riley in chat. He says he was suggesting him for Tin Man, but I think you two are in sync that like Hugh Jackman would be an amazing person to. You could kind of just plop him into something. You know, when I say it's like he's Hugh Jackman always strikes me as one of those actors you can say do this thing and he wants to attack it with just like vim and vigor. You know, like he doesn't always like. As with any actor, he doesn't always do it perfectly, but I never feel as though he phones in a performance.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap our discussion here in just a moment, but heavy question. Would Toto be a terrier this time or a corgi?
Toto would be a corgi.
You think?
Yeah, Toto would be a corgi. I'm good with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Give me corgi. Yeah.
What if we did something really different and Toto was a cat?
Yeah, I mean, you could do any of that. The problem is, all that stuff sounds kind of cool to do, but man, make a movie out of that. I don't know. Stand it up against this thing. Forget it.
Look, this is going to be next year's NBC live musical special thing.
I think Jon Favreau's already making it.
If there was one person that I would be okay with remaking The Wizard of Oz, it would be Jon Favreau. Look at what he has done. He launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Chef,
I'll take
great
Chef.
stuff with Mandalorian and Star Wars. It'd be in good hands, I feel.
I feel like, you know what? Give it to our guests from earlier in the episode. Give it to Joshua R. Pangborn and Nakia, and let's make this, bears and bears and bears. Oh my!
Nakia could be a wizard.
Yeah,
could be definitely.
The wizard.
I'm going to cast You know what? I'm going to cast myself as the Tin Man. I'm just
okay.
if that's what we're doing. So I'm now the Tin Man.
Who would I be?
Let's see. Well, actually, let's hold on. Let's cast the three of us. Who wants to be Scarecrow? Who wants to be Tin Man? And who wants to be Cowardly Lion? I could also do Cowardly Lion, mainly because I want to do this voice.
I think. Well, I would say the wizard, but that's what I played in high school, so I'd want to do something different. I think I'd be the Cowardly Lion if I had to cast myself.
Which would you want to be, Jim?
Tin Man or Scarecrow? I think we all want to be the lion, but I'd want to be the lion. But if that was taken, I would be Scarecrow because I just love the way he moves, and I'd love to try to like.
Oh, you'd be great at
try to put that. I don't know, man. I'm not that limber. Like that guy had some serious moves to kind of make us believe that he was made of like straw. That was pretty cool.
Hold up, I got one. Ready? So if I'm Tin Man.
Loop. Babe, do you have an oil can handy?
Are you wearing a bondage mask with a ball gag?
Do you have it? No, it's not an oil can. It'd be gun oil at that point.
It would be. It would be
gun oil. You got the gun oil. We don't have an oil can, but we got gun oil everywhere. Everywhere.
It wouldn't be a field of poppies. It would be a field of poppers.
Right. Definitely.
Gosh, this thing writes itself.
So, a couple months ago, we had the whole like Princess Bride homemade video remake, which, by the way, if you haven't seen, is fucking amazing. We're gonna have to do a Movie Rares podcast remake of The Wizard of Oz with us and some friends in the different roles. Jordan Riley says, "I will play a flying monkey. I'm hairy enough for that." And I mean, Jordan, you're pretty hairy. You'd make a good flying monkey. I could see that.
Fly, my Harry, fly.
Justin says, I vote Brad for the lion just because he looks like the original actor. I hadn't thought of that. Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we got the Bert Lara going on. Yeah.
Well, guys, it has been so much fun talking about The Wizard of Oz. I know we've got to look to wrap up here. We're getting long on the tooth, but it's that time of year here in the United States when I don't know why The Wizard of Oz plays before Thanksgiving. I mean, I guess it's maybe because it's a great holiday or a great family togetherness film. It's right before holiday, whatever. I'm glad this is accessible to everybody every year. So if you've been listening to us talk about the film and you're like, I don't want to pay for the movie, I don't want to try and find it on a streaming service. Well, if you got cable, 24 hours on TBS coming up on Sunday. Jim, Will, are we ready to put The Wizard of Oz back in the MBP vault for a while? What do you think?
I think so. And I think that exactly to your point, Brad. This is, if there was a year to give this one a rewatch, it's definitely this year. This movie definitely felt like kind of the warm parts of my childhood. And I think that finding good excuses to sort of revisit those from like a self-care perspective when everything feels, sometimes it feels like the other side of the rainbow is way over there and we're kind of way over here, especially this year. So this movie lets you sort of like escape from that for an hour and 30 hour and 40 minutes. So I definitely would recommend, if you haven't watched this one in a while, this is the year to do it.
Yeah, what is it? That song that they sing when they're coming like out of the woods and into the poppy field, and they're skipping across the poppy field, like you're out of the dark, you're out of the woods, you're out of the dark.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes.
I've been feeling like that for I don't know why, for a couple weeks now.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
right, exactly.
My gosh. I feel like the world has switched from the sepia toned beginning of The Wizard of Oz,
which is beautiful in its own way.
Color.
Yeah.
To full, beautiful, glorious 4K color and plastic plants. They live forever.
2020 now in Technicolor.
Our house has fallen on the witch.
Oh man!
Ding dong.
Yeah.
All right, fellas. Do you have some plugs this week?
Man, I don't think go ahead, Will, if you've got one. I watch a couple movies, but I don't know if I would plug either one of them. But
oh, interestingly enough, I was like, I'm gonna snipe this documentary. No, not really. But I was like, I wonder if Jim's gonna bring up I Am Greta. I don't know if he'd watch that one, but
no.
So I've got a movie I want to recommend. It is. This week it is doing theatrical, but it hits VOD, I want to say like in a week or two. It's got a very short turnaround window. So you'll be able to see it very soon. It's a movie called Sound of Metal. And it's this movie, it stars Riz Ahmed, and he is this drummer in like a kind of like a heavy metal-ish, punkish type band. And he starts to lose his hearing. Dramatically and rapidly, and not like shortly over time. Just he wakes up one morning and everything's kind of sounds like he's just like
muffled.
Like he's muffled, and he goes to a doctor and they're just like, yeah, this happened quick and it seems like it's happening quicker. So you should probably lay off the music for a bit. You should probably do all that. And of course he's like, no, this is what I do. This is what I'm doing. And so he's got to try to deal with the fact that he is losing his hearing. That this is impacting his relationship. He's got a girlfriend who's like part of the band. He's also going through, he's afraid that he's about to relapse. He's been, he's had 4 years of sobriety and he's starting to feel that again. So it ends up with him finding, a community of people who are, hearing impaired, rehab facility that he kind of preemptively checks himself into. It has to learn how to communicate with people who he can't communicate with. It is an amazing film. Olivia Cooke is in it. She's super good in it. This movie has some of the best sound design I've heard of the year, because when we start to hear things from his perspective, the sound becomes more and more muffled. We start to hear some of the high tinny stuff. It's real. Like this is a top-notch film. It's called Sound of Metal. And again, it's theatrical now. I do what you will, but I would encourage you to not see it in theaters right now, just because we are in dangerous times. But this one is coming back onto streaming very, very soon, and I strongly recommend you check it out.
Will, is it one that like would be playing in like art house theaters, like maybe at the Loft or something, or is it a bigger movie than that?
So I think that it sort of like falls like in between. Okay. This is the type of movie that I think it would. You know how like there's some movies that that play sort of like are kind of locked in, like they're going to play it probably all of the art house theaters, like not just like like one or two here, but it's going to be like the thing that takes up like half two of the four screens for a bit. It's sort of like that, and it also plays in some like like our Alamo is playing it, and I think. I think which not just like our art house version, it's making its way in there. So again, this isn't Harry Potter, this isn't Thor, this isn't something like that that's going to play in every theater ever. But I do think that this sort of like kind of bridges the gap between like indie and mainstream.
Got it.
And Riz Ahmed is super good. He's one of those guys who you've seen in a bunch of things, but you may not necessarily. But he is. I mean, he carries the hell out of this thing.
Awesome. Well, I always appreciate hearing your guys' plugs because sometimes you put something on my radar that I check out. I'm more of a TV person in some respects than movies sometimes, especially when it comes to documentaries. But Jim, you plugged a documentary recently that I checked out. I'm not going to re-plug it. I'm just reaffirming your plug for My Octopus Teacher. I watched the other day on Netflix. And it's probably one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my whole life. I want my own personal octopus friend, except, I don't know if I could deal with all the sharks down there. I don't think I could do it. But a beautiful, beautiful documentary. So solid plug from a couple weeks ago. My plug this week is actually for a video game that is very cinematic in nature. It's actually a continuation of the PS4 Spider-Man game that I was gaga over a couple of years ago. Spider-Man Miles Morales is now out for PS5 and PS4 as well. So if you weren't lucky enough to get a PS5 yet, hang in there. You'll get one. But you can play it right now on PS4. It still looks amazing on PS4. I fired my PS4 up earlier just to test it out. The game is fantastic. It's a continuation of the Miles Morales plot line in the original game. Spoilers for the first game, but Miles gets bitten by a spider, gets spider powers.
Wait, someone gets bitten by a spider in a Spider-Man thing?
Believe it or not, I know there's even webbing involved.
Thwip.
But this game is such a neat take because the last game focused on Peter Parker and sort of his milquetoast world of not being able to pay his rent and having problems with his girlfriend. Miles is a young teen just coming to terms with his powers. He lives in Harlem, a very like Hispanic and African American community. I spent 30 minutes, no joke, walking around a campaign rally where there's like all these different food trucks and Town of Music playing, and it was just so neat, like walking around this world and like just sort of absorbing all this culture. I walked up to one of the food trucks and like literally someone comes up and like orders, and if you wait around for a couple minutes, they serve up the order. And they have like a conversation back and forth. Like, I don't think I've ever played a game before where like that level of detail is included. But really cool plot line so far. I'm only about 20% in. But if you loved the first Spider-Man game on PS4, Spider-Man Miles Morales is definitely worth checking out. Miles is voiced by the same voice actor who also plays the character on Disney's Marvel Spider-Man cartoon. So if you really enjoyed him there, you can find more of him in Spider-Man Miles Morales.
And sorry, I don't have a plug. My two choices were a movie about recovering a dead diver and another French existential movie about a donkey that's abused. So I just
Dave not coming back.
Yes, Dave not coming back.
Oh god, I knew you would love that one when I yeah.
Well, you know me, I'm a sucker for like a procedural documentary that tells you like the how things happen, and that is definitely one. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know. It feels odd to plug that one.
Well, I plugged that one, and I remember it was hard to plug that one because you can't really talk too much about kind of what it's about until it sort of like gives away what it's about. But
yeah, when the title comes up.
well. Going into it, if you don't know what it's about, like it,
right.
yeah. It's
Thanks,
a good
Will.
plug. Yeah.
It was a good plug. It was a good plug. So I'm reiterating.
your plug. Yeah.
I'm
No, I mean your
reiterating
plug
your-
right now. Yeah.
We're just replugging each other.
We are
That's all.
plugging, circle plugging. Yeah.
Make sure we
It's
social
a,
distance.
this
wash
show's a
our
circle
hands.
plug.
Wash your hands, right?
Merlin is unplugging, Jim.
Yeah, he's
Sure.
sleeping next to my power thing. Wow.
Aw, just wait till he reaches over and paws it off again.
Yeah.
Folks, I know it's been a long show, but it's been great hanging out with everybody in the live chat. Thank you so much for joining us. We didn't get to read all of the comments, but we were following along. Always a pleasure to spend time with you. If you're listening through the magic of digital tape delay, obviously you weren't in the live chat. That's okay. We still love you just as much. Thank you so much for supporting the show. Feel free to send us a message on Facebook or Twitter. Let us know what you thought of The Wizard of Oz. I'm still digging hearing people's memories and experiences with the film. So feel free to share those. Folks, if people want to connect directly between now and our next episode, we'll have to figure out if we're recording next week because it's a holiday week. But Jim, where can folks find you?
Hey, find me on Twitter. That's where I generally talk about movies more and more now that hopefully political stuff is dying down. But find me on Twitter at JJP Out West right here on the screen. That's my initials, JJP Out West. And also on Facebook under Jim Pugliafico. Find me there.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much. Will, how about for you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at whatever cove. You can find me on Facebook. Just search for William Lindis. Send me a message first to make sure you got the right one. And also look for me on letterboxd.com. It's a place where you can rank and list and review movies. If you follow me there, I will follow you back.
All right. Excellent. Hey, big shout out to Big Tom here in Tucson, big hunky, sexy man, who was listening. This is his first time, I think, listening in a hot minute. So Tom, A, welcome back. B, we miss you very much. And hope we can see you again when things calm the hell down. But thanks for tuning in, our handsome friend. Always a pleasure. Folks, you can find me on Facebook. Just search for Brad Harris. I'm the one that has Bear, Chub, Chaser friends probably in common with you. Just send a message first so I know that, you're a real person and not, a crazy bot or something. You can also find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at iBradPro. We will see you all next time. Have a safe, happy, wonderful Thanksgiving here in the U.S. if you celebrate that. If we don't see you beforehand, otherwise, we'll see y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.